right. Okay, chat. I literally just woke up from a nap. Let's go.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
You came on my radar when you were discussing Oumuamua. Is that how I
Yes,
say it?
that's
Mua
right.
mua.
Oumuamua, which is an object that we detected in space that you believe could possibly have been extraterrestrial in origin, meaning from some sort of a civilization.
Right.
Yeah.
This was the space object that made headlines a while back, right? 2 years ago? It was the big object. It was an alien spaceship, Brando. Was it? I thought it was an asteroid. It was close to Earth. What's the background on it? Just watch the clip, retard. Okay. Y'all are getting mad. Okay, let's do it.
Please explain to people what Oumuamua is, why it's so extraordinary, and why you think it's possible that it came from some other intelligent civilization.
Right. So I'm a scientist, and I basically follow the evidence, just like Sherlock Holmes, trying to find solutions. It's a detective story. You
It
have
sounds Ukrainian
some
or
anomalies,
Russian.
some things that don't quite match what you expected, and you're trying to find an explanation. And the thing about Oumuamua is that it was discovered on October 19th, 2017.
Can I ask you guys a question? Okay, so it was found in 2017. Why does it feel like it was only 2019 that that thing came to fruition in the news? We'll get to it. I'm asking too many questions, but why Oumuamua? What? Who came up with the name? Like Oumuamua, to me, it's like a bunch of like you couldn't have come up with a better name, like something more cool, like that's a alien spaceship, or I don't know, like Death Star or Galacticon starship, like something actually cool. Oumuamua to me, chat. Brando, just move on. Play the video. Dan's game. Okay, we're gonna play the video, but like, doesn't I need to know for my own sanity? Doesn't Oumuamua, if that's what they called it as scientists, seem like a bunch of monkeys discovering fire for the first time, and they're like, ooh, like they're just getting excited? That's the kind of like thing that comes to fruition. They don't say fire. They're like, ooh, like they just freak out, and maybe that's what the scientists did when they saw this thing. They like freaked out, and they're like, Oumuamua, and they're like, Oumuamua, yeah, Oumuamua. Maybe it's a science lingo language. I'm missing the beat here.
A little more than 3 years ago. And it was the very first object that visited our vicinity in the solar system from outside the solar system. It moved too fast to be bound to the sun. Very first object that we have found coming to us from interstellar space, from other
That's crazy.
places. And at first, astronomers said, oh yeah, it's probably just like the objects we had in our solar
There's
system.
no way.
All the rocks that we have seen before.
Because all the way to Pluto, everything is
We've
circling
seen
around the sun.
comets
Sun,
and asteroids.
Earth,
So a
Mars,
comet is a rock
Jupiter,
that is covered
Venus.
with ice, water ice. So when it gets close to the sun, the surface gets warmed up and the ice turns into vapor,
a gas.
gas. And you see this beautiful cometary tail behind it.
And you didn't.
That's what a comet
You didn't
is.
see that.
An asteroid is just rock without much ice on it. Actually, the first person to explain what comets are was at Harvard, the university that I am affiliated with. And the
Harvard.
story goes that I mean,
Yes.
it was Fred Whipple that
Yes,
he went
Harvard.
to
We
Harvard
know
Square
Harvard, right,
and
chat?
saw all the slush during a winter
Five
day,
head.
you know, and came up with the idea that it's just icy rock or icy rocks or, you know, rocky ice. And that's what a comet is.
Right.
And the comets come to us from the periphery of the solar system. And, you know, astronomers said, okay, other stars may have them as well. And, you know, since they are loosely bound, if they are in the periphery, they can be easily ripped apart from their host star. And some of them will fly in our direction. We will see them. So they said, Oumuamua is probably a comet. The only problem is there wasn't any cometary tail. So you look for a duck, but it doesn't look like a duck, you know. So then the question is, what is it? And so
That's
people say,
crazy.
okay, it's just a rock without any ice on it.
So it's a comet.
Then the problem was that it exhibited an extra push away from the sun. And usually you get it from the rocket effect. That when you make the cometary tail, it pushes the object in
So
the
it was
opposite direction, just like
repelling
a
from
jet
the
plane.
sun.
A jet plane works
Maybe as
by
it was getting closer, it
throwing
repelled.
gas out,
Maybe like
and that's pushing it
anti-gravity.
forward. So a comet has an extra push when it evaporates. But there was no cometary tail, so why did it show an extra push? That was the key question in my mind, at which point I started thinking maybe it's not a comet and not an asteroid, something else, you know. And the other strange thing about it, it changes its brightness by a factor of 10 or more. And the brightness of the object, the light that we see, is simply reflected sunlight.
Right.
So just think about it. Think about
10
a piece of paper, razor-thin piece
10
of paper,
times
tumbling in the
shinier
wind,
than the sun.
and
It would have exhibited.
changing the area that we can see, the projected area of that piece of paper, by a factor of 10 as we look at it. That's exactly what we inferred from this object spinning around every 8 hours, but changing its brightness by a factor of 10, meaning that the area projected on the sky
It's just
that we
getting brighter
see,
and brighter.
that reflects sunlight, changed by a factor of 10. So that means it has an extreme geometry. Most likely flat, if you try to interpret the light that it reflected over as it was tumbling around. And so a flat object,
So this thing was moving. I can't remember exactly, guys. Only because, just forgive me, this was like what? You said 3 years ago? I thought it was 2 years ago. Okay? But it was 3 years ago that they first came across it. Maybe it was 2018, late 2018, 2019 when it made like the news headlines. But this thing wasn't traveling like this. It was literally spinning around. It's quite interesting. So I can't imagine it being some extraterrestrial spaceship, but definitely some type of alien form technology or something. I don't know. Or obviously, you know, we can't assume as humans we know everything. The universe is so big and there's so many diversifications out there. We can't know everything. We just can't, man. There's probably substances and forms and things and elements that have not yet been discovered clearly. We'd be pretty ignorant to assume that we know all of the elements on the periodic table or whatever. So maybe it's an element of a certain type of rock, if it's even considered rock, that is like anti-gravity and has an opposite effect around. I don't know. Let's just watch the video.
size of a football field,
I'm trying to sound smart.
that has an extra push. If it were a comet, it needed to lose about 1/10 of its weight. So a lot of evaporation. You can't just say, oh, it's a little bit of evaporation and therefore that's why we don't see it. It should have lost 1/10 of its weight. You know, if we go on a diet and lose 1/10 of our weight, that's a big chunk of mass, right? So this
Yeah.
object didn't lose that because we didn't see it. And the Spitzer Space Telescope looked very deeply behind it to see if there are any traces of dust or gas. Didn't see anything. So then, you know, just like Sherlock Holmes, I was trying to think together
like
with
this guy.
a
This guy
postdoc
actually
of
makes
mine,
science make
Shmuel
sense,
Bialik.
not
What
more
could
confusing.
explain it? And the only thing that came to mind is reflecting sunlight. So the object itself is being pushed by the sunlight reflecting off its surface. And you know, that
What?
would agree with everything we know about the object, but in order for it to work, the object needs to be very thin, like a sail. You know, the sail on a boat. So a sail is pushed by a wind, but you can also push an object, a thin object, by light.
Really?
And that is called the light sail. And we're actually using this technology now, developing it for space exploration.
That's
the big advantage is
insane.
you don't need to carry the fuel with the spacecraft.
Dude, that
just
is
reflect
actually
light off
crazy.
it and
I
it's
didn't even
being
know that
pushed.
existed.
There's
Now,
a science fiction movie that did something like that. I think it was called Sunlight.
Quite possibly.
was
I
about
should mention an anecdote.
so cool.
In September, just a few months ago, in September 2020, there was another object that showed an extra push, no cometary tail, and then astronomers gave it a name 2020 SO, okay, September 2020, and then they extrapolated back in time and found that it came from Earth actually, and then they looked at the history books and saw that indeed there was a rocket booster from a lunar lander that was kicked into space, and this is the object. Now, why did it show this push? Because it's a very thin structure. So here is an example where we can tell it's artificial,
Yeah.
and we know that we made it.
Clearly.
But Oumuamua could not have been made by us because it was passing near us just for a few months, very quickly, faster than any rocket that we can launch. That's why we couldn't really chase it when it was receding away from us. And it came from outside the solar system. So, I just do 1 + 1 = 2. I say, okay, it looks very peculiar. Maybe it belongs to another civilization. I just put it in a scientific paper. I didn't think, we didn't have any press release. Then it went viral. The public got extremely interested. And the thing that really surprised me
he
is
was
that
the one
my
that blew it up.
colleagues were
He was the
pushing
author.
back. They were very upset that this possibility was even mentioned. We had a seminar, a lecture about this object at Harvard, and a colleague of mine, after the lecture, said, "This object is really weird. I wish it never existed." Now, to me, that I was really appalled by this. How can you say something like that? You should
Be excited.
You should be happy about whatever nature gives you. You learn something new. If something doesn't look right, it actually teaches us. Oh, it's a learning experience. We learn that we have to revise the way we think about reality. That's a good thing. That's not a bad. You shouldn't always be in your comfort zone.
Dude,
and
this
think that
guy's
the future will
awesome.
be the same as the past. So
You
I
think, chat, any scientists, I am smile, me, I am smile. Why would I ask chat if anyone's a scientist? Oh my god, Brando! Dude. No. God. I totally forgot what I was going to say, but I'll backtrack. As a scientist or an astronomer, somebody who's studying space and technology or whatever, all right, the stars, galaxies, would you not be more excited about coming across something like that rather than wishing that type of thing never existed? Like, wouldn't that just spark more exploration, more things that, oh my god, we don't know everything? Like, to me, that's more exciting than anything else. It just shows you, like, there's stuff out there you just don't know. I don't know. You agreed? Yeah. Yeah, weird chant for that guy. Damn.
actually see it as a blessing.
I can't imagine why anybody would be upset that it exists.
Mhm.
Like, I wish it didn't exist.
That
That's
makes
kind
no
of
sense.
hilarious.
Because it takes you away from your comfort zone,
I know, but it's if you're
As a
studying the heavens,
scientist, you're out of
studying
your
the
comfort zone
cosmos.
all the time.
What is the ultimate thing that you could find? Another civilization or a piece of something
Well,
from
that-
another civilization?
That's exactly my point.
Go
But
work a job
if
at
you go
Wendy's
back in
then.
time, let me give you
Okay.
2 examples. Galileo Galilei said, "I think the Earth moves around the sun."
Oh,
But at the time,
that the sun moves
philosophers
around the earth.
knew for sure that the sun moves around the Earth. You see it moving in the sky. It was consistent with their religious beliefs, everything. So they said, "We don't want to look through your telescope.
Dude, I like this
to
guy.
change
He's
our
using
view.
good examples of why
We will put you in house
humans
arrest."
are stubborn
Now,
motherfuckers.
what did they achieve
and
by
why
that? And
we
by the way,
take
I'm in
so
house arrest,
long
but it's
to
because
evolve,
of the pandemic, not because
even though
So what
we
did
could
they achieve by
evolve
that? They
10
maintained their
times
ignorance.
in the next 5
And
years
the Earth
if we all
continued to
just
move around the
work
sun.
together. But we
Reality
just like
is
to
the
work
one
against
thing
each
that
other.
never goes away, irrespective of whether you ignore it. You can ignore it. Now, there is another example. There is a student at Harvard, that as a result of my book on this subject that is about to come out in a week or so, she was inspired to do her PhD on the theme of my book. So she invited me to a thesis exam just a couple of months ago, and one of the examiners, a professor, asked her, Do you know why Giordano Bruno, an Italian guy, was burnt at the stake? And she said, well, he was an obnoxious guy. He irritated a lot of people, which is true. You know, he was an obnoxious. But the professor corrected her and said, no. It was because he said that other stars are just like the sun. You know, there are stars like the sun, and they have planets like the Earth around
That
them.
rotates.
And there may be life on those planets. And that was offensive to the church, because if there is
Monka
life there,
W.
and it had sinned, you know, then Christ should have visited those planets to save them, to save the life,
Oh my
life forms.
god.
And, you know, you need copies of Christ
People are crazy.
to visit those planets, and that was unacceptable, so they burned the guy.
Burned him
So,
alive.
so you see
Why
that,
not,
you know,
man?
throughout history,
'Cause that's
people are not really
just-
open-minded about the sky, the heavens, as you said.
Catch new episodes.
That's insane. What do you guys think? Chat, what do you guys think? It was alien? Yeah. I don't know. I think it's obviously something that even scientists don't know. But I think you'd have to be pretty ignorant to assume that we know everything, and what you believe is in fact the truth of reality in and of itself, when there's so much of reality that we have yet to explore, yet to learn, yet to even understand and even comprehend. Like, we're not even at that level yet. And I think even if we could, I feel like our brains couldn't even wrap around comprehending some of the things, because we would have to learn the first initial steps and stages of what those things out there would be for us to make it make sense. Or else it's like, you know, people would go crazy. It's that example that gets used where if you were to go back like millions and millions of years to where like there's Neanderthals or whatever humans used to be, or just go back to like where there's like cavemen, all right, cavemen days, okay, and you drop off a Tesla to them. Okay, so you give them a Tesla, you give them the keys, I guess the Tesla's just got like the little fob, the key fob. Okay, just leave them with that. What are they gonna do? Well, they're gonna sit in it. Well, they're probably gonna break it. They're gonna rip the doors apart. They're gonna be scared of it for a while. But eventually, one of them is gonna learn that if you sit in it and you put your hands on this wheel thing, you can press something on the ground and it moves. But it'll take them, you know, maybe a couple of days, couple of weeks till they learn that, and then they understand that, and then they might be able to, you know, later on down the road reverse engineer it. But they'll make it make sense to them in the first initial steps. But first, they'll probably destroy it, right? And that's kind of like what humans do. They, you know, find something and they immediately have these different perceptions of beliefs. And guys, I'm telling you, this is so five head level shit we're talking about. All right.